Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
We are back after a lovely weekend here in the land of Israel. Today we're going to be talking about the new World Hiccup. What is that, say you? We're going to find out. We're going to be talking also about Biden's famine, the famine that is expected to hit at least parts of the world due to this war of Russia invading the Ukraine. And we're going to be talking about, can the Davos model succeed past the US midterms? And hopefully we're going to be having on a young woman in Russia who will be speaking to us about her take on the war with Ukraine, whether she supports this war or whether she doesn't. I wonder how safe she's going to be after this interview. I really don't know, and I hope she will be safe, but we're going to be hoping to get her on because I don't know what her opinion is. I'm going to be hearing this the first time with you. I want to also remind you all that though you have been hearing me less on the radio, you've been seeing more of me now on video because we are branching out into video. We have some spectacular interviews that I've done on our new podcast called Solomon's Sword, where we cut to the truth of issues. And our last one was called World War III. Has it already started? Will it go nuclear? And I'll give you a little spoiler here. Our guest says it's over 50% chance that it will go nuclear. And he tells you why, and he tells you what to expect. Very riveting interview, if I do say so myself. You better go and watch that one quickly. Also, a fun one that I did for Purim, which was being friends with Bob Dylan, the inside story. His friend of 50 years has joined me on video also and talks about how he became famous, what it was like when they were kids playing together, etc. A lot of stuff they got into. Very interesting. So you're going to want to hear that as well. And lots more interviews with people from the Ukraine, people who are talking about right and left issues, etc. Don't miss them. Go to our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com and hit that video button on the menu. We'll be right back.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
We are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And I am thrilled to have on the air with me not one, but two young women in Moscow who are going to be giving us their take on the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And I want to hear from all sides. As you know, they have basically banned RT News, which is Russia Today News, on YouTube. You can't find it there anymore. It's hard to find. I actually did find it. If you go to their website, you might be able to find it, and it might be able to stream for you. But I always want to know the whole side of a story and not just one side. So our guest is Victoria and Sofia Portnyagina. They are 19 years old and 21 years old. They are sisters, and they are joining us from Moscow right now live. So welcome to the show, Victoria and Sofia.
Yes, good afternoon. Hello, thank you for the invitation.
It's wonderful to have you with me. So I really am not sure what stance you're taking and what you want to say about the war with Russia and Ukraine, but where would you like to start?
Yes, I would like to start that we consider this situation as not a war and as a liberation operation, because the main goal of the Russian Federation is to free the Ukraine from the NATO's bloc and to free it from the militarization and nazification.
All right, and so. But what people see, at least in the West, on the news, is that Russia has invaded another sovereign country. What do you have to say about that?
First of all, we need to clarify some moments. First of all, it wasn't an invasion because DNR and LNR signed the contract with us that we are able to create the international law with them. So therefore, we started this operation because of the agreement between us. Yes, and this was the aim. And the news you see on the internet, they might be fakes, but also there is the truth. But we should remember that everyone is trying to show themselves in the best light, and so there are publicly available and historically confirmed facts that cannot be denied in any case. I can tell you which facts they are.
Go ahead.
So the first of all, I would like to say that the reason we started this liberation operation was the expansion of NATO's bloc to the east and the approach to its military infrastructure to the Russian borders. And it is well known that for 30 years we have been patiently trying to agree with the leading NATO countries on the principles of equal security in Europe. And in response to our proposals, we were constantly facing the cynical deception and the attempts to pressure us. Despite all of the process from our side, we were the NATO's bloc was steadily expanding, and therefore the military equipment was moving and approaching to our borders, and so every agreement was like nothing. Therefore, we needed to take the situation in our own hands and to start to demilitarize and to start demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine.
So I want to ask you, you talk about demilitarization, but what we see here in the West on the media is buildings of civilians, apartment buildings being destroyed. And they even have the maternity hospital shown destroyed. I mean, why, if this is a military operation to demilitarize the Ukrainians, why are civilian targets shown being hit?
First of all, we need to analyze all of the videos that are on the internet and to clarify that there are so many videos that are fake ones, and so it can be from the Ukrainian side also. We know that it is undoubtedly and historically approved that the tragic events that were in Donbass have been leading to the death of huge number of people, of civilians, for 8 years. And for 8 years, the Ukrainian Nazis have been robbing and killing the innocent population. So they shelled and peaceful cities of Donbas, and hundreds of thousands of people were forced to leave their homes. So the biggest mystery.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to understand. Are you saying that the Ukrainian army is doing this to their own people, destroying civilian apartment buildings in order to score points with the media, with the propaganda?
Yeah, I don't say that it is going from the whole nation of the Ukraine. It is going from the Nazis, the Nazism, and so it is not a secret that the Nazis have been killing people in Ukraine, in Donbas, and in this year's area for 8 years, starting from the 2014.
You said there was also information that Russian destroyed the maternity hospital in Ukraine, but no one said the fact. According to official data, this maternity hospital was occupied by nationalists for a long time.
So you're saying that there were Ukrainian soldiers in this hiding out in this hospital? And that's why it was targeted?
It's official data.
Yes, it is official data, and we have provided it officially, and it was confirmed that it was free from all of the women there. So
that's why there was such a low death toll. Let me ask you this. What is the news in Russia showing you, the civilians? How many dead are there? Because there's a discrepancy. We get all sorts of numbers. How many Russian soldiers have been killed in Ukraine with this operation?
I think there were many of them because there is much news about it. But personally, my sister and I, we have decided that we wouldn't watch the news because this time we wouldn't watch the news because it is the information that is going now. It is like a huge wave. So we can't cope with this, and it is not the right effect.
But the only news that you're seeing is what the Russian government wants you to see, because there is a censorship on both sides. I understand that Russia just now censored Google. You're not allowed to get onto Google. So why would you not want to watch the news if that's what the government is approving you to watch?
I'm sorry. I'm just using Google every day. So
you're saying, oh, wait, this is interesting. So you're saying that you are in Russia using Google and there's no problem? It's not banned?
Yes, I'm using Google.
Are you using a VPN?
No, Google is working without VPN, but as for the other sources, it can be used with VPN. There is no like a block for us. There is a block, but we can go with VPN or, for example, as you said, Google, but Google is working right now in Russia. I'm using it freely.
So are you saying that that's fake news, that Russia banned Google recently?
I don't really watch the news, as I have already said, but the truth is that I'm using it every day. So I have used it today.
Very interesting. So we only have about 60 seconds left, a little bit less. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
I would like to leave our listeners with the fact that the main goal is to free the Ukrainian nation from Nazism, and Russian people are a strong nation, so everything will be fine with us, and don't worry, we're used to all of the sanctions, we're not suffering, we will overcome everything, and everything is fine, and we would like to thank you for your invitation.
And also, I want to say that there are many kind people living in Russia, and it hurts us very much that almost everyone hates Russian people now. We're hated for our nation and for the fact that we love our country, we love our culture, we love customs.
Well, we have to leave it there. I'm so sorry. We've come to the end of the show, but we will speak again. Thank you so much for giving us your take on the situation.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Hi, I'm Steve Miller.
And I'm Matt Zucker.
Join us for Lighten Up, where we take a look at the week's current events in Israel and from around the Jewish world through a humorous lens.
If you've been paying attention during these crazy times, you know that it's a challenge to parody life anymore. But join Steve and I as we give it the old college try. Not only is being happy an obligation, but life is just too short to take it all so seriously.
So join me, Steve Miller.
And me, Matt Zucker.
For Lighten Up every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Israel, only on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Very interesting interview that we just had with two young women in Moscow giving their take of this war or, quote, operation, as they term it. Very, very interesting. I hope to have them, maybe I'm going to have them on a video interview on Tuesday. On the Solomon Sword. We'll see. So keep an eye out for that. By the way, if you'd like to come to our interviews, you can always write me for the link. You can come in and watch live. You can even ask your own questions afterwards. And just write me at Tamar, Tamar, at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We have joining us now Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. He is a researcher, former lecturer at Ben-Gurion University. He's authored over 80 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideast and world issues, and we're going to be talking about the new World Hiccup. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Thank you.
All right, so where would you like to start, the new World Hiccup?
Well, Biden was in, or maybe he still is in, I don't know. Now, Biden was in Europe right now, just recently. And he went to visit the 82nd Airborne, one of America's lead elite military units. And he said to them two things which were very interesting. He said, if Putin uses, I'm quoting, if Putin uses chemical weapons, we will respond in kind. Really? The United States is going to respond in kind using chemical weapons? I'd rather doubt that. And then he said, the U.S. is going to use, I'm sorry, and then he said that the 82nd Airborne is going to be deployed to Ukraine within 48 hours. Well, obviously that didn't happen. So once again, we're seeing, the typical Biden, that he's just not there. He just doesn't know what he's saying.
I understand the White House is trying to walk back some of his comments, also where he called, I believe he called Putin a butcher as well.
Well, Biden has this unbelievably vile and adolescent habit of name-calling. I mean, it's almost the opposite of anything concerning diplomacy.
Okay, but come on, let's be fair. So did Trump. Trump used to call everybody names.
Not really.
Not really? Come on, Little Rocket Man.
No. Trump called his political opponents names. He never called his international interlocutors names. He was always very careful about that. He always respected Putin. He always respected the leader of North Korea, Kim Il-jung. He
called him Little Rocket Man.
Yes, until they spoke together.
Okay, but still, okay. Doesn't matter though. He still called people's names. But let's get off that. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. My claim is that basically the United States is decapitated right now. And the Constitution defines 5 people, 5-person succession: the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense. The United States right now, all 5 of them are at best incompetent. And if you add all 5 of them together, you have the brain power of an average bar mitzvah student in Israel.
Okay, so where do you?
The point of the fact is,
yes, where are you taking
the United
this?
States is constantly using and overusing this weapon of sanctions. So they've sanctioned Iran, they've sanctioned North Korea, they've sanctioned Venezuela, they've sanctioned Cuba. Has sanction ever worked anywhere? Remember the last time the United States has these enormous sanctions against Russia right now. The last time they had sanctions as extensive as these was in 1940 when they sanctioned Japan, and the result was Pearl Harbor. Because Japan considered that an act of war. As
Right,
obviously these
right.
So what's happening right now? What's happening right now is that the United States has implemented these enormous sanctions all around places, threatening China with sanctions, threatening India with sanctions, threatening everybody left, right, and center. So far, the result is several processes which have begun. We don't know yet where they are. Russia and China are in deep discussions now about an alternative to the SWIFT network. In other words, the first result that Biden's sanctions have caused is an enormous weakening of the United States. So the United States is sanctioning Russia, and the first people to really suffer from it are the American citizens.
Interesting. Okay.
It's not just the price of oil. The price of oil was going up even before the war broke out, but it's gone up enormously since then. I'm reading now that in some places in the United States, the price of a gallon of gasoline at the pump is $7. That's more than double since Biden took office. More than double.
Huh.
And he's only been in office for basically just a little bit over a year. What is it, a year and 2 months now? Not even a year and 1.5 months. There are 2 basic principles that we all need to recognize, we all need to understand in anything concerning managing a nation. Energy security is national security. Food security is national security. Biden's sanctions have seriously endangered both United States energy security and United States food security. Now, should the United States have sanctioned Russia? I would say probably yes. Should have done it thoughtfully and carefully and thought out the consequences and what they actually mean? Absolutely. These were not thought out. These were not planned. These were just adolescent. I just can't describe it any other way. But one of the basic things that has happened from this is not just the punishment that is brought to the American public, but almost every country in the world that is anything in terms of the world stage, first thing they said is, wait a minute, if it could happen to Russia, if it can happen to all of these rich people in Russia, it can happen to me too. I could be next. Certainly, the rulers of the petrodollar nations are thinking that, and we know that for a fact because Saudi Arabia is now discussing with China to trade oil for yuan, not just for dollars, which has not been the case since 1950.
Right. That's very, very bad for the United States. It's a death toll for the United States. Well,
I wouldn't call it a death toll, but it's a very, very large nail in the coffin. The present supply chain issues are very complex. Nobody really understands the supply chain, certainly not in America. Certainly that this ridiculous jerk that they have there as the Secretary of Transportation, who probably couldn't transport his mother. It's going to take years at best to return the supply chains to something similar to what was, if ever. And that's a very, very significant thing to say. Because if your supply chains don't work, then basically your manufacturing doesn't work either. So when you look at the large picture, look at the big picture of things, and remember, one of your favorite subjects, rightfully so, is this so-called Great Reset and the plans of the Davos set, the people that like to think that they can control the world. This is their death knell. We're looking right now at the death throes, and they're going to be enormously violent, and they're going to take a long time, but we're looking at the death throes of the entire socialist establishment around the world.
I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure how so, in the sense that either one, then maybe what we talked about last week with that Lara Logan, who's an investigative reporter, she was saying that it's Putin who's fighting against the New World Order. He's a nationalist. He's not a globalist, and this is what she's saying, that he's our, go-between between going to a global government. So basically that she was defending him in that sense. On the other hand, I'm thinking when the world economies collapse or get very weak, when there's shortages, when people are suffering and they're looking to their governments and their leadership to help them, that's the opportunity for the left who wants a globalist one world order, new world order government. That's their opportunity to actually gain power. They say, okay, give us your property, give us your this, and we'll let you live there. You won't have to move, but we're going to own your house instead. And it comes to the point where it is the Great Reset, where we own you don't own anything, but you'll be happy because the government's going to own everything. And who is the government? The one world order.
Well, it's not quite that simple. It's not quite that simple because of a lot of reasons. But let's begin with the fact that, and I've mentioned this before,
you know what? Hold it until the next segment because the music's already on and we have to go. We're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Okay. We are off the air.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
At the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about what's happening, of course, in Ukraine and how it's going to affect the world, the New World Order or the New World Hiccup, etc. Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem is our guest, and you were just talking about in the last segment before we had to go to a break about you were getting to world hunger, food shortages. What were you going to say?
Yeah, you were talking about the idea that they could control people by controlling their possessions and etc. This utterly asinine expression that came out of Davos, you will own nothing and you will be happy, which is, I find that absolutely repulsive.
Right.
But you can do that if you're talking about a car. Okay, so you don't really own the car, you're sort of a renter. You don't really own your house, you're sort of a renter. You can do that with anything except food. That's the limit.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. What about that one?
Sorry?
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
That was by that idiot that was the
Chief of staff of Obama's, right?
Yeah, on Obama's staff.
Right.
He was an idiot. It's a really dumb thing to say. First of all, it's a dumb thing to say in any case because you just don't want to expose yourself to that degree. How great you view everybody else in contempt. That's just not a smart thing to do. But beyond that, beyond the idea of just being contemptible, to show that you have contempt for everybody else, your elitism. Let's go for a few numbers just really quickly. 15% of all global calories are either from wheat or rice. 25 to 28% of all wheat comes from Russia and Ukraine together. That's a bad combination of numbers. 28% of all human production is food. 12% of all production is Russia and Ukraine. That's another bad set of numbers. Very, very bad. We can say that because of the war, Ukraine will not be planting this year. Let's say, okay, they're the fifth largest exporter of wheat in the world and one of the largest exporter of sunflower oil, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The long been considered the breadbasket of Europe. But banning Russian wheat was just evil. It was just a horrible thing to do because the first people that are going to die from starvation are the people of North Africa, and afterwards the people from the rest of Africa. And then it's going to hit the United States as well. Anybody who thinks that it's not going to hit the United States, listen to the U.S. president. He said it last week. He said last week that Americans are going to die from hunger.
How did he say that?
He actually said those words. He said there will be hunger in the United States. It's part of the price we need to pay, that Americans need to pay. Again,
but America grows its own wheat. America has wheat. They have fields of wheat and grain.
First of all, yes, you're correct. America is a very large grower of wheat, but they don't have enough. They import a lot from outside. Secondly, it's not just wheat. Remember, if there's not wheat available in the world, or a shortage of wheat in the world, there's a shortage of animal fodder as well. You don't have what to feed pigs, cows, chickens. And it goes on and on. Remember that in every action, remember Newton's second law of thermodynamics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
In politics as well. So, yes, they've done all sorts of things. Some of them, superficially, might look like very logical things to do until you start to think. And then you very quickly find out that they have consequences. And these consequences are going to bite you in the place where you try to sit down. And they're going to bite hard. Very, very hard. And they're going to bite eventually in the United States to the population as well. Remember, tens of percent, I think that number that I quoted a few weeks ago was 12.5% of the U.S. armed forces regularly go to bed hungry. There are hundreds of thousands of homeless in the United States. In the United States, the richest country the world has ever known. Hundreds of thousands of people.
So you're saying
all of this inflation is not just going to hurt the little guys that don't really count between the Appalachians and the Rocky Mountains. All of those people that the elites of America don't really think about too much.
So you're saying that the American leadership today in the White House is making its bed, and the American citizens need to sleep. Will have to sleep in it.
Yes, I'm certainly saying that, but I'm saying even more than that. That the American leadership today is not in the White House any longer. it used to be.
And where is it? In China today? Where is it?
No, I would say it's in a combination of Silicon Valley and a few other concentrations. You have it's basically the United States today is an oligarchy. It's no longer a republic. It's no longer a democracy. We saw that in Canada just a few weeks ago. If they can confiscate the Russian oligarchs' money, just as the Canadians confiscated the money from the private bank accounts of truckers who are blue collar, regular working people. So if they can do that to them, they can do that to anybody.
And they do that all under emergency laws, right? I mean, they can't just do that under regular, everyday law.
Well, that's no longer the case. That used to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But those emergency laws were now in America were passed after 9/11, and they have never been rescinded.
That's the problem.
That's
the problem.
They've even been under Biden. They were even strengthened.
Whenever you give up power, you never get it back unless you fight for it, unless you bleed for it, unfortunately. That's what history has shown us.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. Basically, one of the lessons of history is that there's always going to be somebody who wants your power. And if you're not diligent, they will get it.
We have 3 minutes left. Where do you want to go with this segment, this last segment?
I don't want to repeat things more about the fertilizer and things like that. We all know about that. Let me just look at a couple of very basic items right now because, as you said, the time is quite short now. Let me quote again Peter Zeihan that I've quoted many times in the past. Quote, I will be very surprised if global wheat prices did not at least quadruple, and then Middle Eastern prices will be significantly above that. Every country in the region imports at least half the calories they consume, Israel included. Expect to see countries go out and take matters into their own hands. In other words, close quote, in other words, expect energy wars, expect food wars. And again, I'm quoting him, Peter Zeihan, I'm expecting countries like Britain, France, Denmark, Spain, Germany, Italy, adventuring into the African continent to cut direct deals with oil exporters there to prevent the crude from going anywhere except to Europe. In other words, we're talking about an attempt to renew colonialism. The only way they can go direct to the African continent today is by a military force, because the African countries today are actually organized. They're actually real countries, and they actually have pride in their countries, and they will fight.
So this really is the Third World War.
I don't like that terminology, but what I am saying is that the so-called Great Reset has pretty much killed itself, which is why I call it the Great Hiccup. The basic idea of socialism is finished.
And state why one more time in a sentence.
Look, the Great Reset is based upon the idea of socialism. Socialism basically says we have a certain elite. The elite will control you and control everything, all the means of production. And this elite cannot do it any longer because, as I said before, you can do that with houses, you can do that with automobiles. You cannot do that with food. When people start going hungry, remember, let me put it differently very quickly. The last time something like this happened, the last time there was a major problem with export of Russian wheat was in 2010. The result of that was what's called the Arab Spring. Tens of countries where there were uprisings. And they're not finished yet today. The last time the Russian oil networks were stopped, it took them 32 years to renew production. 32 years. These are not problems that are going to be solved trivially or quickly.
So we're in it for a rough ride.
the entire world is in for a very rough ride. And again, I'm not talking just for myself. This is not my personal opinion only. I've given sources. Go to Stanford Research. Go to Daniela Camboni. Go to Peter Zehan. I can give names after names after names, but if someone
we gotta go.
Good sources, send me an email and I will give you many sources. People who
All right, everybody. We have to stop here. Everybody, you can write info@IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and I'll forward all letters to Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem so you can get that information. Thank you, everybody, for being with us.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling for the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.